Okay, so what a day of college football yesterday. So many close games, so many upsets, so many nail biters. But right now, I'm joined by Preston Gant. Today, we need to talk about one of those upsets being Kansas State going to Norman and taking it to the Oklahoma Sooners. Y'all did a stream last night, Preston, talking about this. Great stream with Jay, with Chris of the Horns Down podcast. Before we really hop into this, though, I want to let the people know where they can find all of your great content. So let them know where that's all located.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on YouTube, the PG Show. You can also find me on Apple, Google, or Spotify podcast, the PG Show as well. Or you can follow me on Twitter at the PG Show _. We talk a lot of OU football content, but we talk about all things college football as well. So working on some more interviews for you guys, but just come check us out. It's a great one.
Yeah, man, always a great time listening to your stuff. But right now, we've got to focus on what we saw yesterday. And there's a lot of talk, right, about where does the blame lie in this. I've seen some blame thrust upon Dylan Gabriel. And look, I've been someone that's been very high on Dylan Gabriel, but I'm not going to shy away from he missed throws last night that needed to be made in really important positions. But Preston, I want to know, fair or unfair, I can't put this on Dylan Gabriel. Within the first 10 minutes of the first quarter, Kansas State already had over 150 yards on offense. That's not on Dylan Gabriel, right? Like, as much as Dylan Gabriel may have missed some throws, Kansas State took it to the Oklahoma defense. And this was a Kansas State offense coming into this game that ranked 120th or 127th in the nation in the pass. And they were able to be balanced in their attack against the Oklahoma defense. So I have a real hard time thrusting the blame solely upon Dylan Gabriel whenever the other side of the ball didn't exactly do the offense any favors. Is that fair or unfair?
No, that's fair. For those who want to kill Dylan Gabriel, which I mean, yes, he misses passes that you're like, oh, like he should make that. Oh, you fans got to remember, he's not Caleb Williams, he's not Jalen Hurts, he's not Kyler Murray, he's not Baker Mayfield, but he is better than Trevor Knight and Landry Jones, right? So he's somewhere in the middle between those groups of quarterbacks, and he threw for 330 yards yesterday, 26 of
Exactly.
39. Like you can't say this was on Dylan Gabriel, and you can't say that, oh, if he would have made this pass, we would have won. No, because then your defense would have had to go back on the field, and your defense is what blew the game for you. You made Adrian Martinez look like Tom Brady out there, and a lot of that might just be Kansas State upgraded at quarterback this year. I would say Adrian Martinez is a better version of Skylar Thompson, and they were able to utilize exactly what Adrian Martinez did last year against OU with Nebraska. They did it in this game, and we just had no answer for it.
Yeah, and make no mistake, I'm not absolving Dylan Gabriel of any blame because, like I said, there were throws where you just got to make that. I understand you might have had a guy in your throwing lane but you got to make that throw in that moment. But inevitably, I love the point you made about, well, if Dylan Gabriel would have hit those throws, we would have won. I completely agree with you because that is kind of a what if situation. But you know what we did see? We did see that when Kansas State needed points, that wasn't a what if, they got them. So if Oklahoma was to score, I would be more inclined to believe that Kansas State would have continued to do more of the same because that's exactly what we saw during the game.
OU did not take the game plan that Tulane brought in, which was, hey, Adrian, we're going to make you throw, and we're going to dedicate all of our resources to the run. And I felt like that's what OU should have did. You should have just bolstered everybody up on that line, put a couple more guys out there in the middle, and told them, run it on us. We dare you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go through this now, right? Let's start with Oklahoma's defense against Kansas State's offense because I think that's the perfect place to start given the point you just made. In the preview video I talked about how if you're Oklahoma, keep him in the pocket. You have got to keep Martinez in the pocket because the last thing you want with a quarterback like Adrian Martinez, irregardless of what the numbers say he's been as a passer this year, you don't want him playing backyard football. And you and I with Jay were rewatching the game in here earlier off camera and kind of talking about it, going through some plays. And we saw an example of that as to what happens when he is playing backyard football. Someone comes off of their assignment to account for his threat as a runner, and he just pops it right over their head for an easy 10-yard pitch and catch. I was really shocked that there wasn't more success in keeping him in the pocket. I was really shocked that there wasn't more success in spying him. But Kansas State really had Oklahoma's defense on their heels. And I think that's where I was most surprised, is how effectively Kansas State was able to maintain this position where they were the aggressor and Oklahoma's defense was just flat out on their heels. Now, going forward, what's your biggest area that must be addressed coming from this? Because I don't think it's time to hit the panic button, but there are some things that need to be cleaned up moving forward.
Yeah, so I think, well, before we talk about what needs to be addressed, I think we should do what RJ does and start with the positives. And I think
Okay,
the
for sure.
positives are David Agwebu is still, I think, one of the most crucial pieces to our defense, and he played really well last night. He had 15 total tackles. He was still placing guys wherever they needed to be on the defense. Now, going into what they need to improve on, I think what you need to improve on is learning how to stop a mobile quarterback. You talked about it earlier, but they ran that 3-man front, and that made absolutely no sense. It made
None.
absolutely no sense to me why you would do that.
We saw so many instances where I just thought that there wasn't kind of this cohesion amongst the defense and who was picking up who. Right? We had a play earlier where we were looking at, and it kind of seemed like there was some confusion amongst the cheetah position and the linebackers as to who was supposed to be the one getting the running back, who was supposed to be the guy accounting for the quarterback. And if you already have that level of like, you're kind of off balance, you don't know who's supposed to account for who. If you have a mobile quarterback, they're going to exploit that every single time. And that's what we saw Martinez do, is take advantage of some of the confusion on the defensive side of the football. But you know what? I do agree with you. If we're going to talk about positives for this game, for the most part, I mean, when you look at what this defense does, I thought that there were times where the correct play call was there. There were so many times where Oklahoma had the right defensive play call, had the opportunity, but did not have the tackling to finish the play, and it sprung positive plays. So my positive is kind of a double-edged sword, that you put yourself in positions to be successful, but you didn't do what it takes to be successful, right? You didn't finish. Now, is there anything else you want to add on to the defensive side of this before we flip and talk about the offense?
Yeah, so to the defense, you talked about the tackling, and one thing I noticed is, and I don't know if this is just some of the younger guys were just trying to make plays, but it seemed like they were trying to go in and knock the ball out before making the tackle. And usually it's a let's make the tackle, wrap them up, and then try to knock the ball out after, right?
First guy secures the tackle, second guy comes for the strip. That's usually how it's taught.
Yeah, so that was an issue, but I'm not going to say I'm worried about the tackling just yet because
Fair,
I've seen a huge improvement this year on the tackling.
fair.
And Deuce Vaughn's torso is like P. Ryan's torso. It's
No doubt.
kind of small, and it's hard to grab somebody that's got a small torso like that. So you kind of have to go for their legs. And personally, in my opinion, I think it's easier as a offensive player to get out of a tackle that when they're going for your legs than it is somebody going for your torso because you
Especially a
can
Deuce Vaughn.
yeah, because you can jerk your legs up and everything else. And so I'm not going to be worried about the tackling just yet. I know everybody's going to want to go into panic mode about it because it's what we've seen for a while. But at the end of the day, Kansas State just has our number, right? And I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. In the past 11 years, Kansas State is 5-7 against Oklahoma. They have beat Oklahoma twice in the past 4 years in Norman, right? Kansas State just has our number, and it is because of the way Kansas State plays ball. They go out there, they pound the ball down your throat, they bring up that time of possession, and multiple times last night, what did you see? Hands on the hips, trying to get that oxygen flow in. Your guys were tired. I was actually talking to Ricardo LeBlanc about it during the game, which uh, and multiple times did he say, we need fresh legs. We need fresh legs. We don't have enough guys. It's no, we're not deep enough. We need fresh legs. And I agree. Because when you go to play a team like this, and this is what they do, and this is what they're good at, which consistently, historically, against Oklahoma, this is what they're good at. They're the best that we play that do it. This is the result. Unfortunately, in a place like Norman, where we've had I can't remember what it was, but I know it was over 40 straight games at home where we didn't lose. I mean, I know Bama's got more impressive, but The
No,
Palace
I mean
used to be
that's impressive no matter who you are.
yeah, the Palace used to be a place where you were feared to come in, where they helped the defense out. And it seems like over the past 10 years that we have gone away from that, that teams know they can come in here and beat us. That this isn't a place like where they circle this game on their schedule and go, okay, that one's a loss because we have to go to Norman. And Kansas State's got our number. It's just as simple as that.
They don't fear y'all. And
No.
there is something to that, right? Like it's something we hear about. Being an Alabama fan, you hear it all the time that teams will talk about that Alabama has played. They beat us before we ever got on the field. That's wild. But that was a sentiment you hear with some teams that have played Alabama is before we ever walked onto the field, the ominous presence that is Alabama beat us. Oklahoma has beaten teams before they've ever walked onto the field because the team looks at Oklahoma and is like, we can't play with them. Kansas State, no matter how much more talented Oklahoma may be, they don't look at y'all and say, we can't play with them. They look at y'all and say, here's an opportunity to show everybody how good we can play. That's a much different mindset. And to your point, and look, we've seen it all across college football. If a team can eliminate that fear, they can do something. And Kansas State, first and foremost, right? I agree. It's not time to hit the panic button. Offensively, though, talk to me about what you saw from Oklahoma's offense.
Yeah. One of the questions I had on the offense was where the hell was Javante Barnes in this game? So they used two running backs in this game. They used Eric Gray and Marcus Major. Now they did do two runs with Jalil Farouk, and then obviously Dylan Gabriel had his share. But I felt like going into this game, the game plan should have been trying to play Kansas State's game with Kansas State, trying to take time of possession away. And I love Eric Gray and I love Marcus Major, but Javante Barnes, I feel like is a bigger, and Tommy Walker, they're both bigger backs. I feel like they can pound the ball for you a little bit more than Gray and Major can. And we didn't see either of those two guys last night. They didn't even touch the field. And so that was a little, like, that was a huge head scratcher. Marvin Mims and Theo Weiss got targeted plenty of times. We talked about it. Hey, Dylan Gabriel should have tried to make some throws. Again, I said it, Dylan Gabriel's a middle of the road quarterback, especially from what OU's had in the past. I think we're just a little spoiled because
I mean, y'all have had legendary quarterbacks, so that's
we
absolutely
have.
part of the case, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, legendary, including Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams is going to be known as one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time because he's just
Ooh,
that good.
putting
He's
it out
just
there. I
that good.
love it.
Yeah, he's just that good. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much blame I could put on the offense themselves. I thought the offense played pretty well. Like you don't go put up 550 yards of total offense and say the offense played bad. But I do think there was some head scratchers on the coaching side because I'm like, there were guys that didn't play that I felt like should have played. Like Gibson on the receiver. We haven't seen him hardly at all this year. Why? He's taller than almost everybody else on the field. Put him out there and let him go make throws. I actually went and watched a high school football game on Friday, and I had the same question. They have a kid that is 6'7" on their team. They're not targeting him all game, every game. Like, I feel like that's what you should do when you have somebody that's bigger than everybody else. That should be your number one target.
Exploit
That
it.
should be who you go to. Make them stop that guy. And they're not doing that. And so I get it. He's a freshman. You want to save him, but I don't know. I'm just
My
like, it's
question
real head
is how
scratcher for
far
me.
away or how far along is he? I should say, not how far away. How far along is he in blocking? Because so much of Levy's scheme requires those wide receivers to be confident blockers. That's the only thing I have. Not to say he can't do it. It's just that's the only question I would have. Because to your point, he's a mismatch.
Yeah. Yeah. OU has had that problem with Iowa State for several years now. They have a wide receiver out there that just
Yeah.
torches us because he's too big. And they had one before him as well.
Isn't it
Uh, it,
Henderson?
um, no, I don't know who it is.
Gotcha.
If I went and looked them up, I could tell you exactly who it is if I saw his name, but I don't know his name off the top of my head.
Yeah. So when I look at this Oklahoma offensively, you know what you want to know, in my opinion, what's a bit more surprising than some of the missed throws that
Oh,
Dylan Gabriel had? Go ahead.
hold on. Is it the offensive line not having a single false start penalty last week, but then having like 6 or 7 this week?
Penalties were just wild. So, yes, fair play. Inevitably, that's a defense that's saying, we're going to give you the underneath, we're going to give you the run. You will not throw deep on us. At the end of this game, whenever I look at this, Oklahoma had 15 less rushing attempts than did Kansas State. Oklahoma averaged more yards per attempt than Kansas State. Kansas State was at 5.6. Oklahoma was at 6.5. I just thought that there was kind of an unwillingness to commit to the run whenever you're playing a defense that's literally begging you, run it on me. That's the weakness of this defense, run it on me. And at a certain level, I feel like you have to be like, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice. My Jimmys versus your Joes. Right? We want to go to the SEC. My Jimmys versus your Joes. You want to run a 3-3-5? Line it up. I'm going to just run it all down your throat. And we didn't really see that. Now, we can talk about how there may be some times where the running was a little inconsistent due to some problems up front, but I just thought they'd be more committed to the run than they were. Were you surprised by that at all?
No, I was surprised, and I was surprised because again, Javonte Barnes and Tawi Walker did not see the field, and I'm telling you, if Javonte Barnes and Tawi Walker would have saw the field, this game would have been completely different. And I can make that argument because it's a lot different than passing. Passing stops the clock. The clock does not run, and those are usually really large chunk plays. With the running game, the clock runs. You still time of possession, and I have no doubt in my mind if Javonte Barnes and Tawi Walker would have played, we would not have lost time of possession by 11 minutes. It would have been a lot closer than that. Now, I'm not going to say OU would have won and that the score would have changed drastically, but it definitely would have helped. Game. Yeah, it would have been a different game because it would have helped the defense out.
Yeah.
And I got to, and I'm just going to put this out there, that 24 minutes, a lot of that came in garbage time. So really, that was probably like, I'd say 18 for OU, 18, 20 minutes for OU, probably 18.
Yeah, so I just saw some really uncharacteristic things from Oklahoma in this game. Right, first and foremost, you talk about the penalties. There were 11. Right, there were 11. Like I said, Kansas State is a well-coached team, and I get it. There's going to be someone who comments, but Kansas State lost to Tulane last weekend, and I hope that person has made it to this point in the video. Tulane's got a top 10 defense in college football right now. Will they have a top 10 defense? I'm not saying that. I'm saying right now, that Tulane team's been pretty darn good. So, you know, we also have to acknowledge that, but Kansas State's a well-coached team. So you can't have 11 penalties against a well-coached team and just feel super confident about going out there and winning that game. It just rarely works that well. So I think we both agree this isn't something you panic about, right? It's way too early to panic. Kansas State's a well-coached team. You still got way too many opportunities in front of you. But where does Oklahoma go after this loss?
Yeah, you've got to go out there and you've got to make a statement against TCU, which, if you look at the history, OU always, after an emotional win or something, this is the game that Oklahoma loses, right? And let's be honest, college football season has not started till OU loses to a mediocre team. That's just how it is. This is, so typically history shows after OU loses a game that they shouldn't, they get it together for the rest of the season, right? Last year, the anomaly because Lincoln Riley wasn't in the game. But normally, they lose early in the season and they get it together. So they need to come out versus TCU and they need to come out, put up points on the board, and they need to shut down on defense. And here's the thing. I get it. You want to be conservative. You don't want to run up the points like what Stephen F. Austin did last night, winning 98-0. But you do need to start putting up 60 points a game. We do need to start seeing this suffocating defense and this explosive offense that we talk about so much. Enough of this, oh, well, you know what? It's 33-3, so we're going to take our foot off the gas. No, that's exactly what Lincoln Riley did, and look at where that got us several times. Lost us a national championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, you've got to go at TCU. So, OU needs to come out strong in that game. Then you've got to play Texas, where, let's be honest, Quinn Ewers is probably going to play in that game. OU needs to be ready to not only stop Bijan Robinson, but apply lots of pressure to Quinn Ewers. I don't think Quinn Ewers is as mobile as people think he is, especially maybe coming off of this injury. He's probably going to be a little bit more of a pocket passer that game. So apply a lot of pressure, get to the quarterback, and stop Quinn Ewers.
My biggest surprise in this game is how effective Adrian Martinez was at everything. I mean, he really was out there looking like Lamar Jackson last night running the football, which was really surprising to see. And I was very surprised as to how effective Kansas State was able to stack plays on top of each other, go from run, pass, like how multiple they looked. That's about all I have for you. I'm going to let you kind of get your last word in.
Yeah. You know, I'm tired of the slow starts, and I get it. They want to kind of fill out how far they got to go into the playbook. But let's be honest, you're in Big 12 play at this point. So you need to start getting out the fast starts, because something I noticed last night from this team is they do not fight adversity very well. They came down 14-0. They made it 14-7. Took them a second. They got it 14-14. But it just seemed like Kansas was one step ahead of them all game long. And so Oklahoma needs to come out for the rest of the season, especially against TCU, because TCU has an offense. TCU can score. They need to start coming out, and they just need to start playing ball fast. That's what they need to do. They need to start putting up points. You know, it is very uncommon to see an OU team not go out there and just score on the first drive. But that's what they need to start doing.
Yeah, and I completely agree.
Yeah, I think if they do that, it's going to help build the confidence of this team going forward even on the defensive side of the ball for the rest of the season. And really, I think that's all.
Preston, before I let you get out of here, where can the people find all of your content?
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube at The PG Show, or you guys can find me on Apple, Google, or Spotify podcast at The PG Show. You guys can also find me on Twitter at The PG Show _. Working on getting some more interviews set up, so we got some great content. Go ahead and head on over to the channel and just check out some of the other ones that we got going on.
Yeah, man, you do great stuff. Absolutely worth y'all's time. You need to go over there, check out all of his stuff. But that's about all of it for us. I want y'all to hop down in the comments. Give me your biggest takeaways from the game. What surprised you, what you thought should have been done differently, and where you think Oklahoma goes after this. With all that, we'll see you. That's it.